Giving all glory, honor, and praises due to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash. That's the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, in whom we praise. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone who rule well over the flock of Israel. Shalom and salutations to you, Akim, out here preaching the words of truth and sincerity. Shalom to all the Lord's elect, Akim, and Aqua, scattered Israelites and Israelite foreigners. Abba Radazah, Lord willing. This video will be edifying. Just in recent news, you had the VP of Bikers Against Child Abuse arrested for SC against children. And this is an ongoing trend, man. The same ones you feel like protecting is really out to get. Children going missing. You see there, child exploitation. Abuse, a multi-million-dollar industry, report shows. Who benefits? Then you have trafficking. You got teachers preying on the students. Yeah, people coming up missing, so forth and so on. It don't stop. All right, this is constant news feed. Massachusetts police officer arrested in child trafficking, trafficking thing. So, I mean, the ones you feel like got your back or protecting, And this is more teachers dealing with students. Several Florida men arrested. Global PDF file ring. It just don't stop. More missing Jake kids. It just don't stop. Edomite kids missing, Jake kids missing, more Jake kids missing. They had a new law passed, that the death penalty firing squad for PDFs. So, I mean, it's an ongoing thing. Let's tell you that America is sick, and it's sick with the same sickness that Rome had. Rome had normal PDF activity all day long, PDF files. They had trends, as a matter of fact. Let's get right into it. This is the dark side of ancient Rome, PDF file, Ea, and the Empire. Okay? Swipe to discover the disturbing reality of how sexual exploitation of young male slaves was normalized in ancient Roman society. So we're going to focus on something called the Puri, the young male slave boys who were sexualized in Rome. From emperors to aristocrats, the practice was woven into the fabric of Roman culture. The Puri, that's what they call them. Young male slaves in Roman society. Definition: Roman jurist Paulus defined pure in three ways: a slave, a male, and a boy, creating a specific social category. Roles: these young male slaves accompanied owners on walks and travels, listen up, served at tables and bathhouses, and performed sexual services. Okay, we're talking about young male slave boys in Roman society. Sounds like Epstein Island to me. Served at tables, bathhouses. A Roman bathhouse is where grown men would get naked and bathe in a large pool together. And it was normal, even up into this day. Russians, there's something called a Russian bathhouse. Forget the term for it, but it's very common. It's still amongst Esau. Even some Jakes of the alphabet community. But as you can see, young boys, slaves, was preyed upon. Now, Hollywood works the same way. You sell your young child into this system. They make them, quote unquote, famous, put them amongst world powers, leaders, people in power, people able to change their career, and the rest becomes history. You got products like Justin Bieber, for instance, whose parents knew exactly what they was going to sell him into. It was probably in the contract. How do we know? We never seen a contract. But this was so normalized amongst Rome, and being that America is the second leg of the Roman Empire, how do we know that? Scriptures provided for context of Rome and America being one and the same. All right. Nebuchadnezzar's dream statue. What would the iron legs symbolize? Rome. Well, the 10 toes or the toes or the feet, Slovakia, of that statue is part iron, part miry clay. Why the iron? Because it has remnants of the ancient Roman Empire in it. But it's also strong, partly weak. We understand that. The significance of the strong and weak, dealing with the NATO and the EU having strong and weakened empires. But for it to be of iron, just like the Roman Empire preceding it, tells you everything you need to know. Revelations rather, tells you that the deadly wound of that first beast was healed. So that means that wound, that first beast came back, and that the beast now would cause all to take a mark and to serve as many as wouldn't serve the first beast will be put to death. And so you have persecution of those who buck up against the system of the first beast. What was that first beast? Roman society, the Roman Empire, in which young male slaves were commonly used and abused sexually, and everything in between. It says appearance, they were sumptuously dressed with distinctive hairstyles resembling women, combining physical beauty with skill. Why would you choose to take a boy and to make him resemble a woman with his hair, the way he dresses? Well, it's going to get into it. Slavery and sexual exploitation in Rome. Property, not people. Slaves in Rome were considered property rather than individuals with rights. They could be acquired through war, trade, or birth. No legal representation or protection. Legal texts reveal slaves had no recourse to justice, and owners could act with impunity regarding their treatment. When you look up the word impunity, it's basically no punishments. Nobody to punish you, and you're held not guilty. So you can do whatever you want. You are protected by the law. Power dynamics, sexual exploitation of young male slaves demonstrated status and dominance of the owner, reinforcing power hierarchies. This is why grape is consistent in jail. It's because it's reinforcing power hierarchies where you're dominating. They said that Roman armies and the Roman warriors would have intimate sexual relationships with each other, and it was said that the ones who were fighting over the men would be better warriors. So this is a sick custom and tradition that long precedes America. As a matter of fact, it can be drawn back to the beginning of the Edomite rule, Greek and Roman empires, all right, which the Greek preceded the Roman Empire. But the practices were passed down, mainly practices of pedophilisms. These practices were documented across various literary genres, including history, philosophy, biography, satire, and legal texts. And if you watch any Roman documentary, even 300, they tell you that the Greeks were boy lovers. But in Roman shows, documentaries, the HBO show called Spartacus depicted, right? Also the history. The pedagogiani, education and exploitation. So education came hand in hand with exploitation in ancient Rome for young male slave boys. The term pedagogiani referred to young male slaves associated with education and care. Despite this seemingly benign role, these boys were still subject to exploitation. Educated for service, trained in various skills to better serve their masters. Groomed for appeal, appearance enhanced to increase their desirability and status. Of course, they were dressing them up to be looking like women and fixing their hairs and certain hairstyles to make them look like women, so that when they engaged with them and dominated them. Matter of fact, the term for the man involves with in ancient Rome, the male who took a puree would be called the Domini, which means Lord, like in Anno Domini AD, year of our Lord. So they call it, that's where you get dominatrix from, or to dominate means to be a lord over, execute authority over, dominion over. And so it was a sick sexual practice going back to ancient Rome that's prevalent here today, as you can see with the beginning topics and beginning articles I read. Dual identity served both educational and exploitative purposes in households. Let's keep going. Gender blurring and objectification, feminine appearance. When you look at this picture, if I zoom in, half of these are men. Majority of these are men. And they would do their hairs up like that, give them girl-like hairdos, because these are the puree. They was trained up from young to sit at the tables and wait on tables and do sexual favors for the rich elite of Rome. Gender blurring. Feminine appearance. Young male slaves often displayed hairstyles and appearances similar to women, creating a deliberate gender ambiguity. And this is why, to this day, brothers don't get no lineups. That's a part of that feminine appearance, man. You want to shave her beard because that's a feminine appearance for a male, to an adult male, to walk around with a shaved face. You look feminine. Okay? Line up. Looking feminine. Pretty boy aspect. That all goes back to the exploitation that came from young male slaves, boy slaves of Greek and Rome. And who's ruling over you today? If not the modern day Greeks and Romans. In the movie 12 Goodbye Uncle Tom, they had a scene in which they painted the young boys, and the young boys perform, and they painted them all silver, head to toe, naked. And the young boys had to perform for the rich elite of the South during the time of hardcore slavery here in America. Nothing changed. Look at Hollywood today. Nothing changed. Beauty as commodity. Their physical beauty was emphasized alongside their skills, suggesting they were valued for aesthetics appeal as much as labor. So you were a good worker, you were skilled, you can play the lyre, the harp, all right, but they also dressed you up in drag as a child so that you would look aesthetically appealing to them. This was a sick custom of Rome. Status symbols. The elegant appearance of these slaves reflected on their owners' wealth and sophistication. And there's a documentary or a study rather, where this woman took all of the markings of a society that was in free fall, or an empire before it went out. And one of the main factors she found was that before most empires went out, more great civilizations went down, they had a rise in ambiguity, sexual ambiguity, or what they call today LGBT. There was a sharp rise in it, especially when it comes to the T's. And so as you can see, the rich and the elite and the sophisticated had so much wealth and money that they would turn the boys into girls just to show off their status. This is the sick trend of Babylon. This is why they're teaching in these schools about man and man, or they're telling you could be any gender. This is the sick trend and the continuance of worshiping the first beast. All right, the elegant appearance of these slaves reflected on their owners' wealth and sophistication, turning them into displays of status. The blurring of gender norms and appearance reflected complex social attitudes toward beauty, status, and sexuality in Roman culture. Let's keep going. Cultural attitudes and normalization. Because you got to normalize something as wicked and heinous as this, right? Elite practice. Sexual exploitation of young male slaves was common among imperial and aristocratic Romans. By the way, Nero had a boy slave lover who he cut off his genitals and dressed him up as a woman. Nero, Emperor Nero, when Emperor Nero committed suicide, this boy was passed to the next aristocrat. It says literary references. Authors like Juvenal and Martial commented on these relationships in their works. This is how they normalize it. Masculinity, dominant males asserted power over submissive males justified within cultural framework. Because it would happen to them while they get dominated by the emperor, and the emperor dominated the generals, and the generals dominated their troops, and it went all the way down to the slaves. Social acceptance. These practices were normalized and integrated into Roman social structures. So it was all type of Saturnalia. On Saturnalia, I read that the slaves and the masters would change roles. So you can imagine, you wouldn't even want to imagine how Saturnalia actually looked. But it was a whole lot of PDFism going on. The exploitation of young male slaves was intertwined with Roman notions of power, sexuality, and social hierarchy, making it a normalized aspect of elite culture, impacting identity and agency. Loss of autonomy. All right, not going to read that. Psychological impact, obvious. Social position. You get exploited, simply and plain. All right, so that's the end of that. Let's get some scriptures and wrap it up. Revelation 6:4 says, and there went out another red slacking, and there went out another horse that was red. This is Esau, Edom. The horse represents power. Red symbolizes the Edomite color, showing forth through his skin. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. Part of taking peace from the earth is taking normal, whole, pure, righteous practices from the earth, or subjecting people to abominable practices like that which we just read about. So taking peace from the earth is multifold. It says in that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. And ultimately it's going to end through the Lord judging this place by way of thermonuclear fire. That's that great sword in which these missiles will be launched and sent over here to destroy this place, Babylon, America, in 1 hour. Leviticus 20:13, if a man also lie with mankind as he lied with a woman. Let's take a second to look at how the NLT writes that. If a man practices homosexuality. Okay, so there ain't no speculation here. It says in the KJ, both of them have committed an abomination, which detestable act in the NLT, and a filthy wicked act. It says they shall surely be put to death, their blood shall be upon them. NLT says they are guilty of capital offense. So the offense comes with a judgment, and the judgment is to be put to death. Why? What does that do? That kills two birds in one stone. It kills both of them, right? Puts them out of their misery because they're doing something that is detestable in the sight of the Lord, and it prevents from that that lifestyle from spreading. 2 and 1. Exodus 20 and let's see here. Let's keep going. This is Isaiah 3 and what do I want? 9. The show of their countenance doth witness against them. A countenance, NLT says, very look on their faces gives them away. Your countenance is your facial expressions, your walk, your gait. Scriptures tell you could know a man by his gait, meaning the way he moves, walks, talks. It's all over, written all over them, that they're part of that community. And we just read what the judgment for that community is. And no one's hiding it these days. It's all open because it's written on the street. It's memorized. memorialized by an entire month of June. There's flags to represent these people. They have laws, legislations that support them. It is very much Rome all over again. It says, and they declare this in that Sodom. What's the sin of Sodom? Well, sodomy, even to this day, is a term that represents the LGBT people, or man dealing with another man sexually, which is an abomination, a filthy, wicked act. I mean, it's a filthy, detestable act. Okay? And the judgment of that, which is death. It says they hide it not. So how wicked does the empire have to be, or society have to be, to call themselves civilized and still not hide the sodomy that's found without it? As a matter of fact, they declare it. They declare it. NLT says they display their sin like the people of Sodom and don't even try to hide it. So they're comfortable. It says, woe unto their soul. NLT says, for they are doomed. For they have rewarded evil unto themselves. So you don't have long to do that. You know, the days are numbered of anybody. Well, the idolatry, fornication, anything that's considered abominable in the eyes of the Lord, including sodomy. The Lord won't preserve you. All right, so that's it on that. Abarat Zah. This video is edifying. Until next time, Shalom.